Haribo, can you hear me? Oh, there you are. I saw you for a second there.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Okay, hang on. Let me just-
There you are. How you doing?
Okay. Uh-oh, what did I do here?
No, it's good. You're on.
Oh,
Are you on your computer phone?
now I'm on the computer.
Oh, okay.
There was, I tried a link that you sent earlier, and it said that it's scheduled for May 4th.
Okay, that was a different one. Yeah, I must have sent you the wrong link. I apologize.
Well,
I have two different programs.
That's the link that I posted on the Facebook. So I guess we don't have anybody showing up.
Well, this will be recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I get anybody else, I should get a message in my inbox here, because if somebody joins on Zoom, you're the only one that's joined so far on that link.
Uh-huh.
So, and I clicked on that link, and so that was that's the one that you have now. That's the one. That's the one that you posted. So if somebody joins, then they clicked on that link, so it's fine. So today is May Day, and there's demonstrations going on all over the country. You know, just like you were saying in your article, the Vedic or the Vaishnava engagement, or what was that name? The name of that?
It's called Engaged Vaishnavism.
Engaged Vaishnavism. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to distribute books or do Harinam at these things, you know, so just they can see, you know, a lot of people are angry or afraid or upset, you know, if they see devotees are happy, you know, and distributing books and they can talk to them, then they'll, just by the force of their association. Unfortunately, you know, I had the name wrong. I had May the 1st, and there's stuff going on here today in Pittsburgh at the U.S. Steel building, but it's not until 5 o'clock. The one at the May Day celebration that I thought I was going to go to this afternoon, this 12:30, was supposed to be in downtown at the city county building, but that's not on until Saturday. So I didn't go to anything. It's a good thing I didn't go to anything. But I'm going to record this now.
That's on the 3rd.
Yeah, the 3rd is the May 2nd. May 3rd is the, what do you
So
call
you'll
it?
be going to that.
Yeah, I think so. If the weather permitting, it's supposed to be thunderstorms that day.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people go to these things even when it's raining, you know. I mean, you can bring an umbrella. So let's just start out here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on a second.
This is all about the Peace Formula. You have your video that you created?
Yeah, actually, I tried to create another duplicate, but it didn't work. I'm going to have to redo it. So I had time, but when I rendered it, it was like in negative colors. You know, I shouldn't have done it, and I got to do it on a different program. This software is defective here. Okay, let's see here. Peace Formula. Actually, let me just start by, I'll get a good thumbnail here.
So if you don't have the video, then we'll just read.
I have the video.
Oh,
I just want
Recording in progress.
I just want to start the video here of the Zoom class, because then they can have the entire video on the screen there. So this is a video that of Prabhupada's Peace Formula, which he one of the first publications that he compiled in 1966 when he came to New York City, and it was a mimeograph. You remember mimeographs, Sankirtan?
Oh yeah,
I remember that in grade school. It was like a rotary kind of thing, kind of like the beginning of a Xerox, you know. And I remember those. They passed them out on grade school tests and things like that. The Xerox didn't come into existence until later. But I'm going to go ahead and play this video now. Can you see this?
No, I don't. Okay, now it's coming up.
The great mistake of modern civilization is to encroach upon others' property as though it were one's own, and to thereby create an unnecessary disturbance of the laws of nature. These laws are very strong. No living entity can violate them. Only one who is Krishna conscious can easily overcome the stringency of the laws of nature, and thus become happy and peaceful in the world. As a state is protected by the Department of Law and Order, so the state of the universe, of which this earth is only an insignificant fragment, is protected by the laws of nature. This material nature is one of the different potencies of God, who is the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This earth, therefore, is the property of God, but we, the living entities, especially the so-called civilized human beings, are claiming God's property as our own, under both an individual and collective false conception. If you want peace, you have to remove this false conception from your mind and from the world. This false claim of proprietorship by the human race on earth is partly or wholly the cause of all disturbances of peace on earth. Foolish and so-called civilized men are claiming proprietary rights on the property of God because they have now become godless. You cannot be happy and peaceful in a godless society. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that He is the factual enjoyer of all activities of living entities, that He is the Supreme Lord of all the universes, and that He is the well-wishing friend of all beings. When the people of the world know this as the formula for peace, it is then and there that peace will prevail. Therefore, if you want peace at all, you will have to change your consciousness into Krishna consciousness, both individually and collectively, by the simple process of chanting the holy name of God. This is a standard and recognized process for achieving peace in the world. We therefore recommend that everyone become Krishna conscious by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is practical, simple, and sublime. 480 years ago, this formula was introduced in India by Lord Sri Chaitanya, and it is now available in your country. Take to this simple process of chanting as above mentioned, and realize your factual position by reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and reestablish your lost relationship with Krishna, God. Peace and prosperity will be the immediate worldwide result.
ancient wisdom literature.
Okay.
Prabhupada, I've come across this phrase, peace and prosperity. Prabhupada uses it very often.
Mm-hmm.
Both peace and prosperity for the human society.
We need both in the material world. Can't be happy if you have a hungry stomach. So the Vedic solution to all the problems is to surrender to God. Then if you have, you don't need like all kinds of industrial enterprise or technology or Wall Street or anything. All you need is a cow, a bull, and a little plot of land. And then you can use the bull to plow the grains and sow grains in the field and grow grains, and then the milk comes from the mother cow, and you can raise a family. That's your economic solution right there. Simple living and high thinking.
Prabhupada, early on here, he makes a very vigorous point that the property is not our property, but the earth is the property of God. So
Yes.
We need to change the mentality. People are thinking property is my property. Actually, this took a religious dimension during the age of exploration, when in Europe they were sending out explorers throughout the world, and there was a papacy decree from Rome, from the Catholic Church, that only Christians have the right to own property.
Oh.
Nobody else. They're just living on the land, they're using the land, but only Christians have the right to own property. And according to the Bible, that God gave dominion of this world to the Christians.
Where does it say that in the Bible?
I forget where, but this is a very specific point, that dominion is in the hands of the Christians.
Dominion
So anyway,
is in the hands of everybody that lives on the earth, is it not? I mean, because just Christians are other people not human beings. Maybe some people from the Judeo faith, the Judaic faith, Abrahamic Judaism.
well, the Judeo-Christians. Okay, you can expand it from there, but all of these other cultures, they didn't, according to the Catholic Church, didn't have a right to own the land.
So they all belong to God, or all belong to Christians.
So the idea is this, that either you use the land, you're exploiting. People have learned the way to wealth is through the exploitation of the environment, of the land, and that creates wealth.
Right.
But God didn't want people to exploit the land. God wanted people to preside over the land and protect the earth. This is one of the foundational stories, that before Krishna came, Mother Earth was in great anxiety because she was being exploited by the demoniac. And therefore she went to the heavens and sought guidance from Lord Brahma. And together they went to the shores of Svetadweep along with many other demigods. So Mother Earth was being exploited. And to alleviate the situation, she was hoping that Brahma could help her, but actually Brahma took her even to the highest source. to Vishnu to seek help and guidance from Vishnu himself, Lord Krishna. So this has been going on. This exploitation of the earth has been going on for quite some time. But the idea, like you were saying, that people could live very simply in the Varnashram system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to exploit the earth.
Right.
The earth can give its resources in abundance freely to those who are God conscious.
Yeah. I mean, Emerson used to say, the exclusivist in religion doesn't see how he shuts the door of heaven on himself by excluding others. You know, it's like a sectarianism that we are the only true religious faith, you know, like Christianity thing. My mother used to say this when they would elect a new pope, which they're going to do very shortly here. They would be waiting for the white smoke to come out of the chimney, and she would just like kind of sarcastically comment that the Christians think they own the entire world, that they're the only persons that are in charge. But actually, you know, I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I just read something, I shared it actually because I thought it was pretty profound. Bhaktivinoda talks about this I have this quote here. Yeah, he says, "It is improper and detrimental to argue over these differences in faith or whatever. If one goes to someone else's place of worship, one should think, the people are worshiping my Lord, but in a different way. Because of my different training, I cannot quite comprehend this system of worship. However, through this experience, I can deepen my appreciation for my own system of worship. The Lord is only one, not two. I offer respect to the form I see here, and I pray to the Lord in this new form that he increases my love for the Lord in his accustomed form. Those who do not follow this procedure, but instead criticize other systems of worship and show hatred, violence, and envy, are worthless and foolish. The more they indulge in useless quarreling, the more they betray the very goal of their religion." And he also says, I remember, I think in the Bhagavat, he said, one shouldn't engage in calumny in the leaders of other religious faiths. Said, well, we belong, like if you see another guru or some priest or something, you shouldn't criticize taking that part in this land. And Prabhupada actually it's really commented on this in 1976, which was the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And that's coming up again. It'll be the 250th. It'll be a milestone, 250th anniversary in 2026. So he talks about that, and he talks about the idea that people came here to this country and they said, well, we're children of God, we want to live on this land. And so they started living on the land, but then they said, well, we're the only ones that deserve to live here, and we're not going to let anybody else in. And Prabhupada says, the first thing they know is that the land belongs to God. This is the proprietorship issue, you know. Why do Americans claim that the land belongs to them? When the first settlers went to America, they said, this land belongs to God, therefore we have a right to live here. So why are they not allowing others to settle on the land? What is their philosophy? There are so many overpopulated countries. The American government should let those people go to America and should give them facility to cultivate their land and produce grains. Why are they not doing that? They have taken others' property by force, the Native Americans, and by force they're checking others from going there. What is the philosophy behind this? And the BTG says, there is no philosophy. And Prabhupada said, roguism is their philosophy. They take the property by force, and then they make a law that no one can take another's property by force. So they're thieves. They cannot restrict God's property from being occupied by God's sons. America and the other countries in the United Nations should agree that where there is enough land that should be utilized for the human society for producing food. The government can say, all right, you're overpopulated, come here. we'll give you land, so you can produce fruit. That you would see a wonderful result. But do they do that? No. What is their philosophy? Roguism. I will take the land by force, and then I won't allow others to come here. I mean, the Native Americans, they didn't even have a concept of this, this land is mine, They thought that the land belonged to Wankantunka, God, the Great Spirit. They didn't even have a conception of ownership. So they were actually more advanced than these Europeans that came over here, because they thought that everything was theirs.
Yeah, I think so.
In the Lakota tradition, they didn't even allow men to make the rules because women are more soft-hearted, and the men would always create wars and everything. And they would always think ahead, too. The women were in charge of making the rules, and they would always think ahead for 7 generations. In the Lakota tradition, they would think about the children and their children's children up ahead 7 generations, and then they would produce their policy or their agenda in that way.
Yes, that's the difference between the whites and the Native Americans. The whites ask, what can I get out of this land? And the Native Americans, their mentality was, what responsibility do I have to the land, to Mother Earth?
The earth is our mother, and that's the Vedic conception too. The earth, they have that. I remember during the interfaith gatherings, they would say the earth is our mother. We must take care of her. We got the earth. We got our real mother. We have the guru's mother. The cow is our mother because she gives milk, and all these things should be protected. And so we must take care of her. And so, therefore, the earth was in distress. Like in the past time you were talking about, she was overburdened by the demonic forces that were increasing their military might. And so she was crying, and she went to Brahma, and Brahma went to the ocean of milk and started praying, because he can't really talk to Vishnu, but he can get a reception in the heart, kind of like a radio broadcast. And Vishnu told him, don't worry about it. I will come and relieve your burden. I found it interesting. I was reading the Padma Purana or some Purana, and they said the earth, Bhumi, she's the Mother Earth. She said, I can bear the weight of many, many heavy things like mountains and oceans, but I can't bear the weight of one liar. So how many people are lying today? It's the age of hypocrisy. Everybody's lying.
Well, that's why the devotees, their responsibility really is to present the principles of Dharma. These are universal principles, beginning with truthfulness.
Yeah.
The truthfulness, there's compassion, there's internal and external cleanliness, and then there has to be some self-sacrifice. So these 4 principles are the guiding principles of human civilization, of real civilized life. And people, they have a sense of it, but once they're presented in a very systematic way, then they'll be able to distinguish who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. It has to be based on the principles of Dharma.
Now, what is Dharma, though? Dharma is, you're listing these 4 qualities: truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, and compassion, right? What are those 4 principles that you're saying? Truthfulness.
I mentioned compassion.
Right.
Internal and external cleanliness, and self-sacrifice.
Oh, sacrifice, okay. There's only one, those are the 4 legs that the bowl of Dharma is standing on. But only 1 is remaining, and that is truthfulness. And that's why Bhumi said, somebody that tells a lie, I can't bear it anymore. And so now it's ramped up to the point where the leaders, these demonic kings, are lying so much that they're like pathological liars, pretty much, and they don't say anything but lies. So it's in a very if you can't have to fight back with the truth, and if people, there's a lady named Hannah Arendt, I think her name is. She's a political. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she was
I'm familiar with the name. Yes.
Yeah, she was a very brilliant.
Very popular.
Yeah, and she wrote that if you base your political structure on lies, then nobody knows what the truth is anymore, and they don't have anything to base on what is real and what is not real. That's why the devotees have to come in and say, okay, this is real and this is not real, and distinguish reality from illusion. And so many people are covered over by the lies that they're telling. Just like I'm reading the book 1984. Have you read that book?
Many years ago, yes.
Yeah, my wife had to read it when she was in high school, I think. But they had the Ministry of Truth, which is the Ministry of Truth was actually based on all lies. And it was like an Orwellian doublespeak. Truth means lies, ignorance is intelligence, and freedom is whatever. It's just exactly the opposite of what it is. And they base and that is becoming actually what the society is now. That book was written in 1946 for the future, but it's becoming true. In this day and age, especially in the 21st century.
Well, the powers that be want to manipulate everything. They started with 150 years ago. The industrialization led to the beginning of the exploitation of the earth, mining the earth, coal mines, oil fields. All of this was going on. So that exploitation kind of is also exploiting human beings for their resources, enslaving human beings, making them slaves, and then also taking the land from the indigenous people, robbing the land. And this had a name of manifest destiny here in the United States.
What does that mean?
We were destined, the United States was destined to own this land, and therefore we can harm and exploit the indigenous cultures because we were destined to take the land. So, but now, the whole thing has... What they've done to justify this mentality is they've twisted their Christian doctrine.
Right.
People, in every religion, they're there to exploit the religion and twist the doctrine. So this has happened with the Bhagavad Gita, and it happens time and time again with the religious principles. That's why Krishna has to come and rectify everything so often.
I just looked up Manifest Destiny. It says it was a belief in the 19th century United States that American settlers were destined to expand westward across North America, and this belief was both obvious, manifest, and certain destiny. It's like fate. Right. We're bound, because we're God's chosen people for some reason, and that was the deity was Columbia. In Columbia, that's the goddess or whatever that's on the top of all the Capitol buildings, and she is actually representing the personification of the United States and the manifest destiny. It doesn't have anything to do with God or, it's just the people claiming it's like a massive bodily conception that we're the chosen ones. And it's the same with the Jewish people, right? They think this is our holy land, and it's not your holy land,
Mhm.
And so they're all fighting with the Palestinians, and they can't create peace because they don't understand that God is one instead of two. Allah, and there's correlation between the Christian faith and the Muslim faith.
Yes, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, they're all Abrahamic religions.
Yeah, and
stemming from Abraham.
Yeah, coming from Abraham. Abraham was one of the first in the Old Testament, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
and so the idea is, in the Abrahamic religions, their whole mentality is, my religion is right, whether it's Jewish or Christian or Muslim. My religion is right. The other religions are all wrong. They're all going to hell if they don't accept my religion.
Yeah,
but
because,
you were reading from Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah.
Now, the Vedic Vaishnava teachings are much more liberal and open-minded and understanding.
Yeah.
Yet God is found in every religion.
Yeah, Bhaktivinoda said it's like a mountain. You look at a mountain from different viewpoints, from the east or the west or whatever, and you might see it a different thing, but it's the same mountain. There's no two mountains. And I used to use this like when I was driving for Uber, and talk to somebody, and I'd say, we chant. Our yoga process is this repetition of the holy name. And I would say, this is our yoga. It's the recommended process of yoga in this age. And so it's kind of like a drum circle, And I asked people, do you know what a drum circle is? And I said, I know, I'm old, so I know what a drum circle is. It's kind of a hippie thing, But anyway, I think I have somebody at the airport for pickup right now.
Uh-huh.
Mother Jayashree asked me if I can pick them up. So nobody came.
So you want to finish up here?
Yeah, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I do have a closing comment. And this is a quote by Prabhupada. And this is very important. The Krishna consciousness movement is not a sentimental religious movement. It is a movement for the reformation of all of the anomalies of human society. And that reformation goes hand in hand with the chanting of the holy name. And so Chaitanya established the Yuga Dharma, the chanting. So if we can chant and engage other people in chanting, then the potency of the holy name actually becomes much more powerful, and this will dispel all of the anomalies of human society. So Prabhupada says, if people take to this seriously, discharging the duty scientifically as ordered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the world will see peace and prosperity instead of being confused and hopeless under useless governments.
Correct.
So right now we'll see these useless and selfish and exploitative governments at work, creating a huge mess, a great dilemma. And the only means to dispel the anomalies of this dilemma is by the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy name.
Prabhupada said if only 1% of the population becomes Krishna conscious, you could change a whole world.
So the thing is, the devotees, from whatever religion they come from, need to present these sacred principles that we call the Sanatan Dharma, or the Yuga Dharma.
Yeah.
The dharmic principles. They're universal. So we need to combine with others who understand these universal principles and educate the public so they actually know how to dispel the anomalies in this age of Kali.
Yeah, I was just listening to a radio show, and there was some Christians on there that were talking about the whole idea of Christianity and also national pride. Having the American flag, and they were saying that they don't really understand some of their Christian associates anymore because they've been contaminated by this like apasampradaya, this false idea that we own everything, we're the only true religion, this Christian nationalism that's taking over our our religious groups. There's a whole substratum of these Christian because they want to make they think that the Constitution of the United States, or that our founding fathers wanted a Christian religion. Now, there are some spiritual things in the founding documents, like all men are created equal, like that, right? And those are kind of like spiritual concepts, but they were hesitant to like force any kind of religion, have a religious test for any kind of leader, because they wanted to include everybody. I think, and you have this person was calling into this talk show. She was saying you have to know what is religion and what is the system of a constitutional government, and you have to distinguish between what is really true and what God wants us to do, and what is sectarianism. Because sectarian, like you were talking about, like everybody thinks that their religion is the only religion, and Emerson used to talk about that. He said, some people think that this is our religion is the only religion, and if anybody else has any light coming from them, they must have borrowed that light from us. But pretty soon they're going to find themselves in their little tiny hut, will become weak, and it'll lean and bow, and the universal light of true religion will go into their little, let them think like that for a while, but universal religion, or dharma, what you're talking about, will act eventually.
They have to be very vigorous, because they are thinking like that, and they'll want to stifle other religious voices. They want to predominate these Christian nationalists who see that falsely think that the founding fathers were trying to present Christianity, and so this is totally fabricated.
Right.
The founding fathers wanted to separate. They saw how polluting, how divisive, if religion and government were to intertwine, they saw how divisive and polluting it was.
Yeah,
and
because some people think that they're the only way, so they can't, if they can't agree. See, the thing is, like Radhanath Swami said, if you look at another, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is quoting, he's saying another religion. I might not be familiar with their tradition but it's like Radhanath Swami also made a similar example. A person who has a dog, the dog knows who his master is. If the master is dressed in a suit and tie, if he's wearing sweatpants, or if he's totally naked, the dog is going to know that it's him, that it's his master. Similarly, when we see a person of another faith, if they're genuine, we should see God through them. And if you can see, just like my spiritual master, you say, show me your love of God. Show me your love of God. And if they have the symptoms of love or dharma, then that should be manifest in their personality. You judge them by their fruits. And that way you can determine whether or not they're on the right path. Because the path is one. For everyone on this path, doesn't matter. I used to say, like, to my Uber riders, I didn't finish the story. It's like that story about Romeo and Juliet, the Montagues and the Capulets. And the lovers were upset that they couldn't get together because they were from different feuding families. And one of the characters, I can't remember who it was, Romeo or Juliet, said, a rose by any other name smells as sweet. So it doesn't matter what name you call God, God is one. And he recognizes his name no matter what language you call it. And so, everybody says, well, Allah, he's a cheater. Or, that's a cheating religion, and he's not really God. Only Jesus Christ is the only Son of God, or this or that. And we could fight about it, but God is one. There's only one creative person that created everything, and we are all parts and parcels of that personality. Until we realize that in the universal sense, we'll never have peace, because we don't know what real religion is. I mean, this whole idea of separation of church and state, Prabhupada used to say that there is nothing separate from God. They don't even in Vedic culture, they didn't have that conception of the separation of God from anything, from our family, from our government, from anything. So, but it is in Kali Yuga, because everybody has a separate mentality and they have different schisms and sects. They may think that, we're the chosen ones or whatever,
Well, they're separate because the founding fathers were very suspicious of what the motivations of the religions were. Were they to enlighten or to legislate? So nowadays, the religions, they don't have any potencies, they can't inspire, therefore they have to seize the government and legislate their so-called religious principles. But I'd like to finish up with another quote by Prabhupada, because sometimes people think, are the devotees, are they dabbling in politics? What is going on here? No, we're not dabbling in politics. We're injecting Dharma into politics.
Right.
And so Prabhupada says here that devotees are generally unaware of the happenings within the material world because they're always busy in activities for spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, when there is a calamity in human society, they cannot remain impartial. If they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes.
Yeah, it's like a water pot, a cracked pot, and all your Shakti, your Tejas, runs out.
So if we have knowledge, we have to transmit that knowledge. We have to be responsible to convey that knowledge so other people can find relief.
Yeah, and unless they're attracted to that knowledge, see, the whole thing is by hearing and chanting and Sankirtan and Hare Krishna mantra, because, unless they're attracted to the message, Bhagavatam says all of your activities, occupational duties are useless, waste of time, unless it leads to attractiveness to Krishna's message. Because Krishna's message is the only message that we should be interested in. We're not interested in any kind of mundane,
political solution.
Political solution or political, this person is good, this party is good, that party is bad. Right. And this man is rich, so I have to worship him, and the person is poor. Like they used to say, oh, these people are poor. Do you believe black people have Obama phones and refrigerators? They have refrigerator. That's like ridiculous. They used to say that in Fox News. And so they criticize somebody, but all these things are just like, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that if you discriminate, you think one person is high and one person is low. It's that you can't. It'll disturb your devotional attitude, because it's just it'll disturb your service if you think, because these are material things. You can't judge according to material circumstances, or like he's talking to Uddhava in the 11th canto in Jnana Yoga, the second verse, I think, and he says materialistic devotees, or like a non-devotee, or even an envious third-class devotee, he doesn't want to see anybody united in Krishna consciousness. He tries to separate people. And so the entire material world is based on this Machiavellian principle of divide and conquer. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to divide people, and all the authoritarian regimes since time immemorial, what they do is they first go after the immigrants or the trans people or something like that. And then they go after the political agitators, and then they go after the citizen. And, there's horrific stories right now. I don't know if you've heard. Actually, my ride is like canceled now, so I don't have to do that. But
okay.
But I just saw a piece from Oklahoma. This one, I think they were Indian, because it seemed like the lady, they didn't show her face or say her real name, but they were just moved into a more affordable family home, and they had like 2 or 3 daughters. The father wasn't there, and ICE or the U.S. Marshals or whatever, actually it was Homeland Security investigators or something like that, an agency you never heard of, but it's vast. They knocked down the door, and they were all, this was in the middle of the night, everything was dark, and they got them out of bed. They were all like dressed in their underwear. There was a teenage daughter there. They threw them outside in the rain, and it was cold, and they made them stand there while they ransacked the whole house. They took all their electronics, like the tablets and their phones and their computers, and they took all their money, and they left. And they didn't give any reason why they were doing it. And they're citizens of the United States. And
yes, expect more of this type of stuff.
It's going on already. I mean, this is like, but the reason they do this is because, they ran on this immigration. We're going to get all of the brown people out of here. Anybody that's not a citizen. And this Alberto Garcia, they put him in there's no due process. There is a constitution in the United States that says, habeas corpus. That means produce the body. You have to have due process of law in order to become adjudicated, because everybody has a right, to know their accuser, to defend themselves, and to have a representation. But if they have no possibility of doing that, and they just get, like a black bag operation, they get thrown out into in a van or something, and then deported to some kind of black site prison on the other side of the world. I mean, it's happening practically every day now.
The interesting thing is that they claim to be Christians. They claim that it's a Christian country, but don't know what the principles and what the teachings of Jesus are, and they're totally acting in total opposite of religious principles and Christian principles.
Yeah, I mean, the J.D. Vance was objecting to the Pope, and he was saying the Pope made some comment about this immigration, said it's like unchristian-like, and he was saying that he's just like a newly converted Christian, and he was saying that the idea in the Old Testament is that first you take care of your family, then you take care of your neighbors, then you take care of the people in your country, and then you take care of the rest of the world. But that's not really how it works. In Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis, there's a term called imago Dei. Have you ever heard that Latin term?
No.
Imago Dei means everyone is created in the image of God. And that means brown people too. So if your government is claiming that this person is not really a human being because he's of a different color, that is actually an assault against God, not any kind of like nationalistic thing. This is a spiritual concept that's in the first chapter of Genesis, imago Dei. And so it's actually a spiritual principle that all the religions should fight back on this kind of idea, because everyone deserves their equal rights pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, prosperity, as you said in the beginning, and they shouldn't be taken away without due process. That's against our Constitution. Magna Carta, like in 1400s, like 500 years old. It shouldn't happen. I mean, and this country is violating those rights by just discriminating against certain ethnic groups or religions or anybody that speaks out. The college professors, like there's this one lady from Harvard. She wrote a paper about objecting to the Israeli genocide, pretty much, that was going on against the Palestinians, and she wrote a paper about it a year ago. And she was approached by a bunch of masked ICE agents, thrown in a van, and deported to Louisiana in a deportation. She's like a Harvard doctoral graduate student, and
well, there's so much injustice, and the thing is, it only has to come back to helping educate the public so they can make a real sense. Now, even in the Bible, you're talking about justice before.
Yeah.
So this is in Micah, in the Old Testament.
Old Testament.
This is a point in the Old Testament where the people have twisted the laws of God.
Okay.
And so there's a prophet that comes along and he explains to the people that, that God has already told you what to do, and you've been told what is good and what is bad and what the Lord requires of you.
Right.
And these 3 points are the things that he says. The Lord doesn't want you to make any elaborate ceremonies or even necessarily give any elaborate gifts. But there's 3 things, he said, that the Lord wants from us. One of them is justice.
Oh.
Maintain the justice. And then also be kind to others. And also the third one is walk in humility with your God.
Nice. I like that one.
These basically are dharmic principles. We need justice, stability, and order in society. We need to be kind to others.
Even the animals.
Yeah, and then we need to be humble.
Yeah.
In our so no one is advocating those principles.
Where is the humility? The humility is, everybody thinks that my religion is the only religion, or I own everything. I think our president, our current president, said, actually, I run the whole world.
Well, that's not a very humble position.
No, and he said, actually, he was in an interview with Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes. That program is going off the air because they sued him into oblivion. So that's another aspect of authoritarian rule. They get rid of the press. But that program has been on for like decades, and that's going off the air because the head executive of the 60 Minutes. But anyway, she asked the president, said, "You're not known to be a humble man," and he said, "I'm more humble. I think I am very humble. I think I'm more humble than you could possibly comprehend." In other words, he was bragging about how humble he was. Mm-hmm. And it's like they don't even have a conception of humility.
Well, that's why devotees have to take the responsibility. Devotees in whatever spiritual traditions that they're following have to step up and take the responsibility to speak in a unified voice and to educate the public on the principles of Dharma. These are universal principles.
Yeah.
So, there's so many, we can offer up thousands and thousands of examples of injustice. But the main thing now we have to do is to systematically present the principles of Dharma.
Yeah, as it's coming from Krishna himself. Krishna makes the Vedas, and the Vedas are his word, and he doesn't make anything up. Prabhupada said, I'm not manufacturing anything. I'm simply presenting the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And these are Krishna's words. They're not our words. It's not our, something we made up. So if we simply go on repeating, if we surrender to Krishna, and as Lord Chaitanya recommended, you try to teach everybody the principles of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and try to liberate everyone in the land. You be guru. And that's what we have to do. It's on his order we have to do that. And we're empowered by Krishna. As soon as we attempt to do that, he'll give us the intelligence to what Prabhupada used to say, inject Krishna consciousness into the dull minds of the materialists. Because they can't even understand. They have to first get some prasadam and see the how nice the devotees are, and then they'll inquire, what makes you so happy? Why are you always smiling and dancing and things like that? If they see that and they take part in our programs, then they'll eventually ask questions, and they'll get into the philosophical point.
This is certainly an opportunistic time. Just like, for instance, when Arjuna was confused.
Right.
He was on the battle. He had to fight a battle, and he was bewildered. He didn't know really how to proceed.
Right.
Krishna guided him. So in the same way, right now, masses of people in society are confused and bewildered and really don't know what direction to go in.
They're really begging for a solution that is permanent.
So the devotees have to step up.
Yeah, there is a permanent solution. All it takes is, if you have an unmotivated and uninterrupted attraction for Krishna, you always have the answer to everything. A devotee knows the question of the problem. The only lack of anything, the only problem in the material world is a lack of Krishna consciousness. And if you meet a devotee who is actually attracted to Krishna, he can answer all your questions in a shastric way, and with philosophy and the force of all the scriptures. And it's not a dogma. It's actually a dynamic, loving relationship that we have with Krishna. It's joyfully performed, and people are so upset about what's going on in the world right now, that it is kind of like, I've always heard, like if there was a war or something like that, there's no atheists in the foxholes. They have that saying, So if it is a calamitous situation, perhaps that's the arrangement of Krishna, that we need to actually be guided by a higher force, a higher principle, and then depend on the devotees, because that's the only hope of the spiritual traditions. Doesn't matter what tradition it is. If it's a real devotee, if the people are submissive and humble, then they'll be able to understand who's really the authority. Otherwise, there's no authority. Hridayananda used to say that society is like a ship without a rudder or without a captain, and it doesn't have any sails. It's just floating in the ocean. What's going to happen to that ship? It's going to end up on the rocks because it has no guidance. So that's the way society is going right now. It has no guidance, and it's going to end up on the rocks because everybody is, in it for themselves, and they have no moral authority. So it's just chaos, and they need some guidance, and they want the guidance. But it's just a matter of convincing them that we actually do have the solution to all the problems. Actually, in the Science of Self-Realization, Prabhupada has a whole chapter about, Krishna consciousness is the solution to all material problems. So thank you for joining. Appreciate
It's
it.
my pleasure. It's always good to touch base.
Yeah. Maybe
Thank
we'll do it again
you.
sometime if you have another article or something you would like to talk about. But we have to keep talking, and even though nobody showed up, I don't think. And let me see if I got any more hits on my. No, it was just you. But it's two guys Srimad Bhagavatam class or Bhagavad Gita class. That's what I. That's it's better than nothing, And I used to actually just hang up the phone if nobody, or stop the Zoom class if nobody came on. But recently, I've been actually trying to say something, with current events that are going on, and just record something, because Narada Muni says even if nobody gets on, he's there. Narada Muni's joining the kirtan. So
But,
thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
People can take a look at my recent article. It's posted on ISKCON News. It's called "Sharing the Universal Principles of Dharma: Engaged Vaishnavism." Sharing.
Oh, that's the one that you just recently wrote, the one that I read, right? Engaged
Yes, and that's what
Vaishnavism.
my whole focus is nowadays, is presenting the Dharma.
Yeah. Dharma also means the intrinsic nature of a thing, does it not?
Yes, I have that, the various nuanced meanings of Dharma is in my article.
Yeah. Like the Dharma of fire is heat and light. The Dharma of water is wet. The Dharma of a human being is service.
Exactly. We're constantly serving.
Yeah, and
So
there's no
we're
exception to that
serving
rule.
well.
And in human society, that's why Dylan, when he was in his Christian phase, he said, you got to serve somebody.
Right, exactly.
That's a great song. That whole album that he wrote, the Slow Train album, he said, you might like to drink whiskey. You might like milk. You might be rich or poor. You might be blind or lame. Living in another country under another name, but you're still going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you got to serve somebody.
Dylan actually had come to several Hare Krishna centers. He was very interested. He was reading the Bhagavad Gita.
he's
I met
brilliant.
Dylan when he came to the Chicago temple.
Yeah, I think you said something about that. Have you seen that recent movie?
About Bob Dylan.
Yeah, but by Timothy Chalamet. It's called
A Complete Unknown.
yeah. Have you seen that?
Yes, somebody recommended it, so I watched it. Yes.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I like our late Mike Benoit. You know him?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, he was kind of a musical aficionado, and he actually wrote a review of that movie. He saw it before. I treated my friend Devananda Pandit to that movie because he's a big Bob Dylan fan, and he recommended it because he said it was really good, and because they portrayed him in pretty much the way he thought that he really was. He was kind of a caustic personality, and they didn't show that very much because of the writing, but they did show a little bit of it. But he was, he and I just liked the music and the songwriting. I mean, he wrote "The Masters of War." Are you familiar with that song?
Oh yes.
That is one of the most powerful anti-war songs ever in the history of mankind, because he wasn't really on the gravy train with all the other hippies, and Joan Baez was trying to make him like part of the cause, but he was his own man. He spoke with his own realization, and he was very self-reliant, and he wasn't going to be swayed and jump on the bandwagon of this or that, But he wrote that song, and that's one of the most powerful songs ever written about, about the, anti-war.
Yes, he was a social commentator, and
Yeah, definitely. But he spoke from the heart. He wasn't like trying to follow the crowd, He was his own man. But I think he was actually kind of like any kind of inspiration that somebody gets, like Mozart, when he wrote his music, a symphony would appear in his head, just when he was walking around in a good mood. And the synapses in your brain aren't that complicated. So it can't just appear. It has to be given to you. And so some people it's called inspiration. Inspiration is actually divine. Like some mathematicians, they'd be thinking about a problem, and then all of a sudden, you'll be sitting in a bathtub or something, and then they'll think, Eureka, it'll come to them all at once, the solution to their problem, and it's given. It's actually a gift. Then there's not enough brain cells in your brain to actually figure out. I mean, he would actually hear the whole orchestra, the whole piece in his mind, and then he would write it down later.
In a 60-minute interview, actually, Bob Dylan, he admitted that those early songs, which is so tremendous, they came to him in, he didn't really have anything to do to compose the songs. They just flooded his mind, and
he also said, something that I don't.
It was a gift. He said it was a gift.
Right, and that's actually what all creative persons depend on, because it's actually coming from Krishna. Krishna, if you want something, knock on it shall be answered. If you actually want to serve Krishna, like all of Bach's music was written in glorification of God. All of his work, and similarly, like Dylan said, could you ever write anything like that again? And he said, no way. But that's not really. I mean, when you're a certain age, you have that youthful energy, and that might diminish in your old age. But Prabhupada, because he was a spiritual person, he would be writing his own book. Like in Mexico City one time, Hridayananda was outside of his room, kind of like his personal servant. And Prabhupada called him into the room because he was reading a new edition that had just come out. He had a first printed edition of a volume of Bhagavatam. And he asked him to come into his room. And he asked Hridayananda, have you read these books? And Hridayananda said, yes, so Prabhupada, I've read the books. He said, aren't they wonderful? I mean, that just proves to you that he is really not writing them. Krishna is writing them. His spiritual master is writing them. He was never out of touch of his spiritual master. He used to say that my spiritual master gave me the ability to write these books. I'm not writing anything. But he would be up all night writing, and that was...
He hardly, yeah.
And that's, in order to write like that, you do have to have that connection, that kind of like a channeling. All musicians will have that, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, the guitarist, they said he would just like come on the stage and do just like everything. It would be like he was possessed, of some kind of exterior knowledge, because that's the way you get real knowledge, is from another source, from a spiritual source.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining me.
Like you said, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Definitely. Yeah, if you have any ideas, just shoot me a note, because I have a Zoom class every Sunday night at 6 and every Tuesday night at 7. But any have any kind of discussion, I know you might not have, if you're having dinner, we could do it at a different time, because there's no hard and fast rules. But I'm right now, I've gotten through all the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. I just finished the Priti Sandarbha, which is like the goal of the goal of the Bhagavatam, and that's kind of like he talks about the Ujjwal Nilamani, and it was really sweet. But now I'm looking for something else to read. But I've got two bhaktas, a young man from Michigan, and then he comes on three bhaktas, one bhaktin, and two devotees from Pittsburgh, and we have that on a Tuesday night at 7. But any other time, just shoot me a line and we can set something up.
Okay, I'll do that. Take care of yourself.
All right, thank
Sarah,
you. Prabhu,
thank
Hare
you so very
Krishna.
much, Prabhu, for your service to the public
Haribol.
and to the devotees.
My pleasure.
Okay, I'm gonna head out and take
Okay.
care of yourself.
Bye-bye.